Hello, this is David Baumblick from Terebinth Leadership. I was going to make a video today about the economics of America, but I decided let's talk about security. There's been two, you could say, murders, assassinations that happened. One is the Ukrainian woman, the refugee, and in America, and then obviously there's Charlie Kirk. And there's a reason why. When you think about leadership, people say, why isn't there change? We talk, why isn't there change? The two most significant elements of human beings and societies that will invoke change is security and economics. And I really wanted to focus on economics because, like I said, I think we've turned into a corporation that really ultimately the change is going to be economics. It's the money. And so I wanted to talk about that, where we'll talk about gold and crypto and everything, and there's a big crash. But let's talk about security because, like I said, those are the two levers that get people nervous, that get what's called people mobilized, security and economics, and that's what all countries are trying to look for. I'm not an advocate, I'm not here to talk about China. It's not just China, but it's a lot of nations similar, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Japan. I even believe Charlie Kirk visited Asia. I'm not a follower of Charlie Kirk, and we'll talk a little bit about at least what I think some of his principles are. But if you go to places, at least in Asia, again, I'm not an expert in other areas of the world, but I consider myself an expert in Asia, especially China. The safety, we're talking physical violence, it's beyond belief. I don't think you can understand how safe it is. I know some other places too, obviously like Switzerland and Dubai, same thing. So the point is why, and we'll talk about China because that's where I'm an expert on, why is China so safe? And yes, we could talk about the negatives of China, this and that, and I'm telling you, I don't advocate, especially if you're a white person, to live in China, but I don't want to get so confusing. Let's focus on physical violence. The safety in China, in terms of physical violence, is on another dimension of America. I write about this in my book too. And I believe, again, I don't follow Charlie Kirk, but I hear this all the time. I think he left South Korea and he's like, wow, it's so safe here. He might have said this. If I'm wrong, correct me in the comments, but it doesn't seem to be that people never mention the obvious. And the obvious is places like China or Japan are what's called homogeneous. They are ethno-states. Just to give you an example, in China, the amount of foreigners in China are less than 1%. It's actually 0.2%. That's not 2%. I'm saying it's less than 1%. It's 0.2%. Most of those foreigners are actually Asian, or you could say Chinese Americans, Chinese Canadians. I mean, it is so slim to none to find foreigners in China. And if you do, you're probably in Beijing or Shanghai. And that is what I consider to be one of the main reasons that China is so safe. And again, I write this in the book because I compare gun laws to Switzerland, where Switzerland is also a pro-gun society, and I'm pro-guns. But even if you look at Switzerland, so obviously China, there's no guns. So people would say that, there's no violence in China because there's no guns. But then I write, no, look at Switzerland. Again, I did my MBA in Switzerland. I've lived in Switzerland. I'm obviously fluent speaker in the German language, and I could say I know Switzerland very good, and it's unbelievably safe, and they are pro-guns. So it's not a gun thing. What do I think it is? Well, I think it has to do with some type of, and I don't know when this happened, when I was a child or maybe when I was in college. I mean, you tell me, but this phrase called diversity is our strength. I don't quite remember when this happened. It's probably a good leadership point. When people are always about conspiracy theories, it's probably good to research. When did this become mainstream? Diversity is our strength. Because I could tell you, in China, they ain't into diversity. Now, Switzerland has guns, but their level of diversity is, again, similar to China, much less than America. Meaning Switzerland is a bunch of white people. China's a bunch of Chinese people, but also besides that, it's not just race. You can look at a religion, whether it's Christianity or in China, there's Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism, and just culture, strong families, conservative, stuff like that, but it's more homogeneous. Race, it's a big factor. Not everything, but it's a big factor. But it doesn't seem to be people talking about it. I believe one of the biggest factors of violence in America is this thing called forced diversity, where sooner or later people are going to wake up and think this is not our strength. Like picture, especially if you're white people. How many white people in America are like, wow, we need more diversity or less? Probably more. I mean, and even this happened to me growing up, but you've heard of white flight. It's very similar. White flight, Christian flight, conservative flight, people leaving areas. And now people are leaving due to politics, which relates to that, meaning going from one state to the other. So the part is when it comes to Charlie Kirk, maybe I'll say some words about him, and this woman, this Ukrainian woman, what's the answer to defeat this violence and safety? Well, I would probably say we need to stop the forced diversity. And I've also said, I'm not just anti-illegal immigration. I'm very anti-legal immigration. I just don't see why America needs more and more immigrants, even if they're legal, whatever, they pay their taxes. So the point being is I believe this, and it's diversity, everything. Homosexuality, I mean, you can name it. We have too much diversity in America, and I believe people are going from either one state to the other, one city to another, city to country, you name it, is because I think what Americans are really wanting is family. And what is a society or what is a state? It's an extended version of your family. And when people want family, they don't want diversity. They want to come home to their wife or husband or children and feel like it's home, that it's not strange, that it's very familiar. And that makes people feel comfortable. It also makes people feel safe. So they want to live in a society that's an extended version of their family. I mean, this is basic stuff in China. I mean, it's literally one big family. I mean, they're all the same. And if you're a liberal from America, then yeah, you would go to China and you would immediately say, this place lacks diversity. I don't know, does it? Seems to be doing fine by me, and especially as China gets more and more powerful, even from these Republicans. I think these Republicans suck too, by the way. Again, I'm a nationalist. When they always say China's getting more powerful, well, how are they doing it without diversity? So China's getting more powerful, but they're not doing it through diversity. Maybe they're doing it through unity, and oh yes, racial unity. I do want to talk about Charlie Kirk on this thing, and that is, people know me, I don't have a high opinion of Republicans. I don't even have a high opinion of MAGA. I think a lot of these MAGA people are fake. If you're following me on Twitter, you'll see that people have blocked me on Twitter that are supposedly MAGA, which doesn't make sense. I don't really know them. They don't know me, and I've asked them for help. I'm a military veteran. Can you help me repost my message? And boom, blocked. Wow. It's not a very, and these would be these main MAGA conservative political influencers that always preach, we're pro law enforcement, we're pro military, we're pro Christian. That's kind of who I am, but they don't do it. So I'm not really big on these typical MAGA Republicans. You're going to see there's going to be a new direction. And I'm going to give you an example. Now you're starting to hear, one of them is Mike Lee from Utah. You might like Mike Lee. He's a piece of shit, Mike Lee. He's actually sent me a letter that's not addressed to me. It's a standard letter. Thanks for contacting me. I've contacted him hundreds of times. He's ignored me. He knows who I am, by the way. And I don't think he's ever served in the military. He takes his money from taxpayers. He has a duty. He's not a private citizen. For him to ignore me, he's a piece of shit. So anyway, he's also saying this, that now MAGA, because of Charlie Kirk, they want to censor free speech on people that are pro Charlie Kirk getting assassinated and getting killed. It's also pathetic. I can't technically say these words on YouTube. You ever hear these people, they can't say these words like, I don't know, rape or stuff? Is that not childish? And because it goes to my point. if there's ever a time where we do not want to censor free speech, now's the time. And I'm going to give you the leadership lesson. So if you're one of these MAGA people that are like, it's time to censor free speech for anyone that speaks positively about Charlie Kirk getting killed or is that, no, we're not in the same boat. I have never witnessed so much censorship in my life, and it's getting worse. Even everyone who knows my story, the amount of censorship that's going on. Let me give you a leadership lesson that relates to this problem about free speech. So like I said, you may disagree with people talking about, Charlie Kirk's bad, this and that. We need free speech. Let me give you today's leadership lesson. And it goes to security, because again, I still go back. I think the main reason that the violence is going, I feel safe, is forced diversity in all forms. But again, I'm not like these typical cuck MAGA Republicans. We need to talk about race. Race is a big factor of this forced diversity. So again, why do I think China's so safe and why do I think America's not? I would probably say this forced diversity. Okay, but now let's go to this free speech, because this also comes to this point. You hear this a lot. There's a lot of these talk shows from the left or right where people are saying, now they're agreeing there's a problem. Again, I left America in 2010, and I'll talk more about another video, my predictions, but my predictions are pretty good. This is part of leadership. And what did I predict in 2010? I mean, I started predicting this in 2005 when I was in the FBI, but then in 2010, I literally left America, meaning that's putting actions behind my words. We are going to collapse. We're going to go to revolution. Oh, and we're going to go to civil war. Because I remember talking about this in private, because I never want to go on social media and people think this is crazy. Yeah, give it time. It's coming. So let's go back to this point about free speech. And this is about leadership. You're starting to see more and more talk show hosts, especially they're bringing in both sides of the equation. Like, let's bring in the left, let's bring in the right, and let's figure out, because now it is starting to become more and more mainstream that America has a major problem. I'm telling you, we're going to collapse. We are the Roman Empire. Where again, when I left in 2010, very controversial. Now it is starting to be mainstream where people are thinking, this is not looking good for America. And it's not, it's getting worse and worse. So here's the key point of leadership. Now we're getting into the phase of mainstream media, the mainstream people, that they're starting to realize this America, which I consider to be the American empire now, it's not looking good. Some people are still not sure, so it's sort of, we're saying 50-50 to the American people. It's not 50-50 to me, we're going. But I'd say to the American people, it's sort of like 50-50, like, is this gonna go good or is this gonna go bad? Which has never been before. So people are actually starting to think of possibilities like, could this go to collapse, civil war, stuff like that. So now they're having talk groups on mainstream media, talk show hosts, where they're trying to figure out not the problem per se, because they're agreeing there's a problem, is what's the solution? So they say, what's the solution to this? Well, this is my point, and it goes back to these MAGA people about the whole Charlie Kirk. If you first you agree that there's a problem, that's good. There is. We have a major problem in America. That's why I left, and I'll do more videos, and more Americans are asking me how to leave America, where to go. This has never happened before. When I left in 2010, I don't want to do a tangent, but this whole thing about Americans leaving America, getting other citizenships, this is a new thing and it's increasing. Because again, it goes back to what I'm saying. People are starting to realize we have a problem. Well, that's good. That's the first thing you do on leadership is, do you have a problem or not? Because if you do have a problem, the first step is admitting you have a problem. It's like an alcoholic. The first step is, I am an alcoholic. Okay, so that's where we are. But now we're in step two, what's the solution? And that's where you're hearing debate. That's where, okay, let's get a right-winger, or, let's talk to these Nazis, these liberals, because people don't know what to do. So they're starting to get people from different, you could say, backgrounds, and at least figuring out what's a solution. Well, I would say Leadership 101, when you have a problem, but you don't know the solution, what do? Well, you get input. This is called communication. It's like in the military. Now, the military is a dictatorial system, which makes sense. It's very pyramid, and the officers, this is not a democracy. When we give the orders, it's a go. But there's times that even in the officers, we may not know what is the best path forward. And it's common, it's me, I totally agree, where you will get input, not just from your peer levels, but from your subordinates, where you'll ask a soldier, hey, sergeant, hey, this, what do you think? And you get input. And that is very important. We all know this. This is common sense, communication. So if there's ever a time now where people are trying to figure out what's a solution, is it possible that out, especially in social media or wherever, that people actually have the answer to this problem, but they're being censored? You don't think so? I mean, the amount of censorship that I got, I still cannot believe, as an American citizen, military veteran, I'm censored for just trying to report government corruption. I'm still amazed. So if I'm censored, I guarantee other people are getting censored left and right. And this is, again, back to you cuck MAGA. Again, I don't really have that much respect for the MAGA. I think a lot of them are fake. Again, I consider myself a nationalist. But you hear from these cuck MAGA people, it's time to start censoring speech on people who thought it was a great idea or whatever that Charlie Kirk got assassinated. It is what it is, people. Let free speech. We are not in a time now that you want to censor free speech. Let the free speech coming in. And what do I think right now is also the answer to the problem with this forced diversity? It's very similar to a dysfunctional marriage. That's what we are. We're in America. It used to be functional, especially say 100 years ago, where we lived in a homogeneous society like America. Now it's become so dysfunctional with forced diversity. And this happens to do, man, I don't want to forget it, but there's also retarded MAGA people with Charlie Kirk said, it's war, man. It's time to get on to the liberals. News to you retarded MAGA people. Do you really think these liberals, which are whatever, pink-haired feminist, homo dudes, do you really think they're ruling the world? These yo-yo liberals? I would probably say the people that are really ruling the world, that are destroying your Christian faith, your European family, and your freedom are probably the global elites. Some people say it's coming from Israel, the Jews. Free speech. Then let's have free speech. I would also say probably these globalist corporations and these globalist governments, but we need to have free speech. But do I think it's from these, and some of them are lunatics, like these lunatic liberals? They're a problem, but I would probably say they're not the ones manipulating the system. But again, back to the story about the MAGA people about trying to shut down free speech. Not a good idea. It's time to let free speech come in and then use that. But again, back to the part about a dysfunctional marriage. I look at America now, before it was I guess you'd say a viable marriage, it is now dysfunctional. Thanks to forced diversity from the corporations. I still look at it from these globalist corporations and this globalist government, they're all on the take. But again, if you want to say it's Israel and the Jews, free speech, we need free speech. So anyway, it is now a dysfunctional marriage. And what do people do in a dysfunctional marriage? There's probably only two options. If you stay married in this dysfunctional marriage, there's probably going to be violence. In fact, there's probably already violence. Domestic violence. He hits her, she hits him. I mean, it's totally dysfunctional already. There is domestic violence already in this marriage. I would probably say those two individuals need to either, one, get a divorce and go on their happy way, or they might kill each other. It's very possible to kill. And most people, because we have freedom, or at least we still doing that, you are allowed to get a divorce. People leave and they go on their ways and whatever, good luck to her, good luck to him, and goodbye. That's how I think it's going to be in America. Meaning, we're going to split. This is it's going to go to civil war if the federal government, and this is where Donald Trump, I've always said he's still the best president in my life. I'm not all on board with Donald Trump, but I still can't pick a better politician, a better nationalist. But I'm telling you, this plane is going down, meaning America. And it's either going to be a soft landing or a hard landing. And what does that mean? this union called the United States of America, united. Diversity and unity are mutually exclusive. They don't go together. So we are now the diversified states of America. And we are going to split either possibly, this is where the FBI thinks I'm some type of terror. Now, it's possible we could do this peacefully. Not like I care, and I'll do my story later again on this. But we could either split peacefully, or I think it's going to be violent, though. I think it's going to be a violent split. But I'd say the answer to this question, again, is through forced diversity. We probably need freedom. Let's start with freedom of speech. To you military people, I don't know what you're defending. If you're not defending freedom of speech, then I don't know what our taxpayers are wasting their money on you. And through this freedom of speech, it may be that, and it's already happening, people are leaving, you could say, red states to blue states, that maybe the answer to America is we split. And then we'll just hypothetically say California being a liberal state. And maybe, whatever, in California, it's a non-Christian state, it's pedophilia, it's no guns, I mean, whatever they're doing, but we divorce. Or I just see an absolute violence, meaning civil war. So maybe it's time to do that. Now, we're going to end it with this, because there's a lot of stories and examples I could give you, and that is, what's the action item now? And again, I focus on the audience. There are going to be a lot of people. I don't know it's not like I got a big audience. I mean, I've been censored so much. To include Twitter. This is my 4th account on Twitter. You know, Elon Musk, my advice to you is, I'm a military veteran, I'm an American citizen born and raised, who's reporting government corruption. Either learn to respect military veterans and uncensor me, or go back to South Africa where you're from. That's my advice. But Twitter is no longer a private company. This is a public company, publicly traded. The First Amendment needs to apply. And if you cannot respect, because you never served in the military, Elon Musk, if you cannot respect military veterans and my free speech, you need to leave America and go back to South Africa. But you could tell where I'm coming from. This is unbelievable, the amount of censorship, 4th account. But I would say this. So again, I'm assuming the audience, you're a white dude from America, or maybe even from the Western countries like Canada, Germany, England. What do? Well, it's Leadership 101. Before you think or try to change the world, which obviously most of us can't, maybe change your personal surroundings. And what is that? Well, start voicing your beliefs bold and loud. And for those that agree with you, then there's, you could say, part of your tribe, part of your family. Those who don't, bye-bye. And truth be told, I would start out with feminism. Now, if you don't have a girlfriend, don't have a wife, then it is what it is. And, do your best, another video. But if you do have a wife or girlfriend or whatever dating, you need to make her know you're the boss. That is the natural order of things. Men are the leaders. And if she's like, screw you, it's not going to be like that way. We're an equal partnership. Well, if you can't put your foot down with your girlfriend or your wife, then I don't think you're one of these guys that are going to be, dude, I'll lead to victory in the revolution. It ain't going to happen. So I would say you start formatting. And to those that are, we'll say, non-white, you can still voice your opinion. Like me in China, I voice my opinion directly to the Chinese. It's not a problem. Because I'm different than 99% of white men in America. I know what it is to live as a racial minority. Most cuck white men in America don't know. That's why they talk out their asshole. Now I'm going to give you an example. In China, I make it known, I do not believe the Chinese deserve the right to become American citizens or Western citizens. Now, they make it known that I don't deserve the right to be a Chinese citizen because I'm not racially Chinese. I respect that. I tell them, I said, I respect it. I am not ethnically Chinese, which means I don't deserve the right to become a Chinese citizen. But guess what? I don't believe any of you people. I don't care how much you say you're pro-American. None of you. I mean, I'd be okay with them immigrating to America. I know it's another story, but they ain't getting citizenship. Maybe a green card, maybe a long-term visa, but you will never, for the same reason that I am never in my life can become a Chinese citizen, they can never become an American citizen. Now, what do I mean by that? And we get along, and that's fine. We agree. So what do I mean by that? You might have, we'll just say, a black friend, or maybe an Asian friend in America. You can voice these opinions. Well, That's the problem. Maybe you can't. You'll get fired from your job. Again, free speech. But you can still get along. So for instance, to the African Americans out there, maybe we need to split in America and you could get your own state for African Americans, but you have a country that you could go back to. It's called Africa. You don't want to go back. And if you say, well, I was born in America. Well, I was born in America and I left. Why don't you? I don't think you want to go back because Africa is a shithole. I mean, it's coming from your language. I know, I speak with a lot of Africans. That's not my problem. But I would say is I'm actually okay with a little diversity, 1 to 5%, 10% at the max. But it's time for white people to say, hey, hey, buddy, whatever, he's a black guy in America. I like you and we could get along. But I want you to make it known that this country, America, was founded by white men. And it belongs to white men, and white men are the leaders. We could have a little diversity. And if they don't like it, I would say go back to Africa, or America's going to split and they could get it. Whereas in Europe, I don't think there should be any toleration of splitting. I think all of Europe belongs to the white men. But what I'm trying to tell you is from leadership, have courage. Have these conversations. Just like with women. Hey, if I want you to know that if you're going to be my girlfriend or if you're going to be my wife, I'm the boss. But what do you mean? It's a partnership. I mean, you could call it whatever the hell you want. I'm the boss. This is not a democracy. I'm the boss. I'm the king. It's my way or the highway. Well, I'm not going to put up with that. Well, then goodbye. And I think a lot of men are realizing it. But what I'm trying to tell men is before you try to change the world, change your life. But I can tell you something. China has changed my world. And I have no problem now talking about these subjects of racial subjects, of this and that. So I want to end it here and I want to go back and recalibrate. So first, I'll do another video on economics because you're going to see a crash you've never seen. And I stand by it. People think we're never going to go to civil war. We're never going to kill people. You wait when this economy tanks. We will kill each other in America. Look at me as a military veteran. They don't care about me. These military veterans will kill each other. There's no loyalty. So I want to go back to the first part. What do I think is the number one reason that there's so much violence in America and places like Japan or China, Singapore, you name it, are so safe? I would say forced diversity. So it's not about guns. Again, go to Switzerland. I lived in Switzerland. They have plenty of guns in Switzerland. It's about forced diversity. It's not all about race, but I'll tell you, race is very, very important. So that's what I want to first say. I'd say is this thing called forced diversity, number one. The second thing is, I would say is, if we have a problem, one of the best ways to find a solution is communication. This is not a time to censor free speech. I mean, free speech is just going down. So if you're one of these MAGA people that say, hey, I want to censor these liberals who think it was a great idea that Charlie Kirk got a Senate, I totally disagree with you. Let them say it. And it has to do with espionage and domestic intelligence from the FBI. When you start censoring free speech, the FBI has a job because then they're going to start infiltrating you. If you allow free speech, then it's basically open source intelligence. I'm not saying, I don't want to change the subject, but you can understand the pulse of the country. That doesn't mean we're going to open up investigations. I still think free speech. But if there's ever a time in America where you want more free speech instead of less, you want more. Because otherwise we're not going to know the solution to this. And I would say, final thing what I would say is this, and that's leadership. Before you change the world, change your own particular life. And if you can't voice your opinion, well then you know something's wrong in America. But if you can voice your opinion, start voicing your opinion to where you know who agrees with your philosophy. If they do, you're going to form a tribe. If they don't, goodbye. And people are doing that. You're going to see relationships get broken, people moving states, people moving cities. You're going to see the polarization in America continue to happen, and that's how it needs to happen. So you could say, listen, if these people disagree with my politics, and everything goes into politics, then you need to end your friendship with them and find people, this would be your girlfriends or who, that agree. Now, if that keeps going, America, it's the natural way, is going to polarize more and more and more. And then there's two things that are going to happen. Either one, let's just split, or two, it could be violent. Hopefully that's a lesson. I'll do another video on the on economics, but either way, hopefully that adds value to it. Freedom of speech. This is not a time to censor it. And I say again, if you really want to reduce violence in America, start reducing forced diversity. That's the leadership lesson of today. David Baumblett from Terabinth Leadership. Lead to victory.